So this is iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I've had this for more than a month now. I've had it since its release, and I have some thoughts. And I want to share with you guys my experience of using the iPhone 14 Pro Max in this gold color. So without further delay, let's dive right in. So starting off with design, if we take a look at the back to the sides and the front, it mostly resembles the iPhone 13 Pro Max, right? There are some differences. But before I talk about those differences, I want to talk about what I've noticed on the phone, what I like about this phone. First of all, it's built like a tank. It's really thick and heavy. I like it. Like, it feels really good in the hand. If I don't use a case, I'm not worried that I'll drop it. I love this matte finish on the back of the phone. In fact, I wish the stainless steel sides were made of a matte textured finish as well. So there is that. Like, the overall look and feel of this phone, the 14 Pro Max, I like it. And that's because it was the same look and feel of the 13 Pro Max. Now let's get to the changes and differences from the 13 Pro Max to the 14 Pro Max. So first thing, the camera module itself is much larger than the 13 Pro Max. Obviously upgraded camera, 40 megapixel camera, so larger sensor, whatnot. So it definitely is much larger. It's more evident with the 14 Pro. It's a smaller phone, but still large sensor. So it's more evident with the size difference with the smaller 14 Pro, but you can still see it here. Super large compared to the 13 Pro Max. And I thought that was large sensors and it took up a lot of space, but I guess I was wrong. Also, with the US model, there is no SIM card tray right here, so eSIM. I haven't had any issues like setting it up. It literally took me like 2 minutes to set up eSIM, but for those who are outside the US, I guess you guys are still lucky. I do travel out of the country, and I kind of wish I had, a physical SIM card slot. So that is a bummer. Not all countries as of right now, have implemented eSIM. So for those that do, it won't be any of an issue, but for those that don't have eSIM, well, then you're gonna struggle trying to, get a SIM card, especially since your US model is eSIM. However, if you're outside the US, you don't have to deal with that issue. That's something that I've noticed. I just wanted to put it out there. Hasn't bugged me as of yet. So we still have to test that out when I do travel to like a different country for vacation or whatnot. Dynamic Island is, it's useful. It's useful when listening to like music, watching videos and whatnot, but for the most part, it just sits there. It just sits there, and that's really it. Even when I'm watching videos, like let's say I'm actually watching a video physically in the YouTube app. So let's go to Siobhan and let's open up his latest video, right? So if I'm going to zoom in, that gets more in the way than if I had the regular 13 Pro Max in Snatch. If I look at it, it's definitely going to annoy me, but if I don't look at it and just zoom out, obviously I don't see it there. So for some, it may annoy them, for some, it may not, but for me, it's kind of neutral. It depends on how I use it. If it's, music, or if I'm using like a podcast app in the background, it'll show up if I hold it. That's really nice. If I'm using the screen recorder or a voice recorder, it shows up as like 3, 2, 1. It does a countdown from Dynamic Island. That's really useful. That actually is something I do appreciate. But for the most part, I'm kind of neutral about it. It still is a really great display. I like this display, and I like this wallpaper even more. This is my latest wallpaper pack. It is called Ripple. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, and if you want to check it out and support the channel, it would really mean a lot. I have a bunch of other wallpaper packs that I'm currently working on, trying to improve on my wallpaper packs, and hopefully within the first couple weeks of 2023, I will be releasing a brand new one. So definitely be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the channel for updates on my wallpaper pack and just updates just generally on the channel. Now, iPhone 14 Pro Max has always on display. I don't use it. I turned it off. Like you can tell, I completely turned it off. Yeah, so there is that. Completely turned off, always on display. It was kind of, I noticed that it was draining my battery life a little bit more, and we'll get to battery life in a little bit. But overall, like display, putting aside like always on display, gets super bright. It gets great outdoors, especially when I'm driving and the sun beams right into my sunroof or through the side of my windows. This gets super bright and I can still see very visibly. It's amazing. I absolutely love this display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But overall design and look and feel to display, which is the most important aspect of a phone in my opinion, has been top notch. Anyway, let's move on to the next segment. Let's talk performance. A16 Bionic chipset. So the 14 Pro and Pro Max come equipped with A16 Bionic chipset, which is pretty much the same. I mean, when it comes to performance from last year's A15. What I mean by it's essentially the same is I didn't notice any difference from just like looking at it with my, with my naked eye. I didn't notice any difference or upgrade or in speed. Like it's just been the same for me in my everyday use. Obviously, looking at benchmark and geek scores and whatnot, benchmark scores, there's definitely like increases in numbers and all that stuff. But look, I don't really care. It performs really good from day-to-day use. So that's not any issue. If you do pick up the 14 Pro and Pro Max, like if you pick up any iPhone, I'll put it that way. If you pick up an iPhone, you're not gonna have any issues when it comes to performance. Now, the issue that does come to performance is actually the software aspect. Not like the chipset itself, but the software. iOS 16, I've been using the beta since June, but I officially updated to like the actual stable update, and it still has had bugs. It still has had bugs, but Apple is frequently pushing out software updates to iron some of those bugs out. It's had some hiccups here and there. So I've had a couple instances where my screen just froze. It was just sitting like this. I couldn't even swipe. Even when I tried to like turn off, like lock the screen, it wouldn't even lock, which was really weird. It was just like, I wasn't expecting it to happen on the 14 Pro Max because I never had it happen on the 13 Pro Max, but there I was. I can't turn off my screen. I can't, move my screen. Like, it was just like frozen. So that has since been pushed out. Like the bug has since been gone. I haven't experienced that for 3 weeks now, so that's a huge plus. Now 14 Pro Max, it doesn't break a sweat when I'm watching videos, posting on social media, which is actually, this is like my main posting on social media device, and playing games. Call of Duty is like the only mobile game that I play. I sometimes open up Pokemon Go here and there, but Call of Duty is the main mobile game that I do play. It's had no issues. I'm a heavy user. I do everything on my smartphones. I typically, like I said, social media, getting things done for the YouTube channel, for the business. And by the way, I'm actually really close to, at the time of this recording, really close to hitting 10,000 followers on TikTok. And I post just random tech videos. So if you want to be sure to, check it out, link in the description down below. But this is like the device that I use for social media. So I am using this very heavily, and I've had no hiccups in that aspect. The bugs from iOS 16, that's different than the performance itself. But for the most part, it's been getting better. Let me put it that way. After the month and a half of using it, it's been getting better with the continuous updates Apple has been pushing out. Let's talk camera. All right, camera, this is the biggest improvement that I've appreciated since I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro Max, since I've, picked it up at launch. This is my main A-roll, apart from this video, because I have to record the 14 Pro Max, but I use this for my main A-roll content. So for any other videos you see that are not talking about the 14 Pro Max, this top down is actually this device recording. Now photos have been stellar, especially in the daytime, and they're always ready to share on social media. Videos are the same thing. Now I'm not a pro RAW user, so I usually won't take photos with the new 40 megapixel camera. And it's default already, like it bins it down to 12 megapixels, and that's perfectly fine for me. I'm just happy to know that if I do need to take those ProRes photos, I do have that option. Now video has seen a huge and amazing improvement, and while I have yet to kind of implement cinematic mode, 24 frames per second in 4K in my videos, I'm excited to know that when I do make the transition to 4K on this channel, I'll have that option, because just like my current workflow, I don't find it necessary to make 4K content, but let me know in the description down below if I should upgrade to 4K. I just don't see it necessary as of right now. There are some things that are holding me back, like internet speed and computer storage and like a bunch of different factors that are holding me back from making 4K content. So let me know, and I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on 4K. But cinematic mode, finally 24 frames, and cinematic is kind of like 24 frames is the frame rate that's used in cinematic movies. So it's good to see that cinematic mode now supports 24 frames per second. It's pretty much kind of like a portrait video. It blurs the background, and Apple has been doing really good. Last year they introduced it. This year they upgraded by adding 4K with 24 frames per second. So that's a huge plus. Overall, I'm happy with the upgrades, and as you see on the screen, I can just pull out my phone, take a video or take a photo, and I know I can trust the results. And that's why I use it as my main A-roll device. If you want to use a camera you can rely on, especially when it comes to video, iPhone 14 Pro Max and even iPhone 14 Pro, they're the way to go. Not only that, I'm gonna even push that even further. An iPhone, all right, like an iPhone 10 or newer. It doesn't necessarily need to be this device. I'm not saying, oh, if you don't have the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you can't start making videos. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you have this one, you obviously have like the best of the iPhones, then yeah, you're gonna get even better results. But I think this is a perfect way to start making content, to start, posting videos if you want to start a YouTube channel. I think these are the perfect devices to start making content on YouTube. I started this channel with an LG G3. And that was back in 2014. And, even though I have a Sony A7 right here, like I have a Sony A7 Mark III, I still use the iPhone 14 Pro Max as my main A-roll. Like I have this and I take photos and videos with this. I like it, but this makes my workflow so much more intuitive, smoother, easier, which is why I use it. And if I was able to get this far with just a smartphone, or just more so smartphones, upgrading smartphones, I think you can too. Let's talk battery. This is where I want to share some thoughts. Last year's iPhone 13 Pro Max, best battery in a phone that I've ever used, period. Like I wouldn't need to charge it for 2 days, even when I would record and use it as my main A-roll or top-down device, recording device for the channel. I wouldn't need to record it or put it on charge day 2. This feels like a downgrade. It really does. First things first, I did turn off always on display because that was affecting the way I do use it, and it was kind of draining the battery. Some may disagree, oh, it doesn't drain out, but for me, it did drain the battery life. And I just don't use always on display. I don't even use it on my Android devices. So for me, I had to turn it off. Now I pretty much use this charging, at least when I charge it, I use MagSafe. I don't use the lightning port. So if they got rid of this, like I wouldn't have any issue. Obviously, I'm the minority. Like I know a lot of people still use the charging port. In fact, like a lot of friends and family, they still don't know what MagSafe is. When I tell them and I have to explain what MagSafe is, you can wirelessly charge it, it magnetically connects. You can use like portable chargers and stick it onto the back of your phone. They are surprised. They're like this. They think this is new technology they've never heard of. They don't know that type of tech, MagSafe, exists on their iPhone, which is just mind-boggling. But then if they don't use it, how are most people going to know? So it kind of does make sense, but for me, I don't use the lightning port. If they got rid of it, that's okay. It doesn't charge, it's not the fastest charging, but when it does get to fully charge, it still lasts really long. I mean, this is the main iPhone device that I use. I have 2 SIM cards, still lasts longer than my Android devices, which my main SIM card is currently in the Pixel 7 Pro. I haven't had an Android device that has lasted longer than the iPhone of choice, whether it be the 13 Pro Max or right now the 14 Pro Max. I just haven't had an Android device last longer in the battery department. So that's still saying something good about Apple. And I hope with software optimizations, they keep on improving the battery life with the 14 Pro Max. Okay, so let's quickly talk about price. It's the same as last year. So $999 for the 14 Pro and $1099 for the 14 Pro Max. I went ahead and picked up 256 gigs because 128, it's not going to be enough for me because I'm using it as my main A-roll device. So I went ahead and picked up 256 gigs. That's really it. Price is still the same. So if you're looking to get a new iPhone, I think this might be like one of the last years where we don't see an increase, at least in the Pro models. There are some rumors early rumors at least, of next year's iPhone 15 Pro models having a price increase. I don't know. It's, like I said, it's just a rumor as of right now. It's not confirmed, but if it does happen, just, gotta make do with it. So for right now, I think Apple did good by keeping these prices the same. You may find cheaper models of the 13 Pro Max used. Apple doesn't sell the 13 Pro and Pro Max directly from their website anymore. They replaced it with the 14 Pro and Pro Max. But it's good to see that Apple made improvements to the phone, but also kept it at the same price. That's what I like to see. I like to see companies do that. Improve on their current or their new models, their successors, but keep the same price. I don't see why, I wouldn't want to pay an extra $100 just because the 14 Pro and Pro Max have always on display. Because I don't use it. It's a feature I don't use. If it's a feature I don't use or someone else doesn't use, I wouldn't recommend picking that up just for that feature. So do keep that in mind. This is still an expensive phone by all means, but it's once you pick up the phone, you can rely on it. It's a very comfortable, reliable phone, and I think it's the perfect phone to get started on making content, and you never know where it might take you. So that's just my recommendation. So final thoughts about using this device. I'll be completely honest with you. I review tech on this channel. I love checking out the latest technology, the latest products out on the market. That being said, if I were not doing this right now, talking about tech, making this video, then I wouldn't even upgrade to this 14 Pro Max. If you have an iPhone 13 Pro Max or even a 12 Pro Max, I don't see a need to upgrade. However, if you do have something like an iPhone 11 Pro Max or older, I think this is the perfect upgrade, and you're going to enjoy every moment of it. You're going to get superior camera upgrades, display upgrades, battery upgrades. You're gonna see upgrades in pretty much every single department. So for that iPhone 11 Pro Max or the iPhone 11 series or older, then I would tell you guys to make the upgrade. Even if you have an iPhone 12, for example, and you wanna make the upgrade to the Pro series, Pro or Pro Max, I would still say do it. But if you have the Pro Max, 13 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, no need, especially 13 Pro Max. Just sit tight, wait for next year iPhone 15 series. I think we're at a point in time where we don't need to upgrade year after year. We don't. The average consumer does not need to upgrade year after year, and some tech YouTubers don't even upgrade their iPhones or their Android devices every single year. They use devices for 2-3 years. And hopefully one day that'll be me, because while it is great checking out the latest products, upgrading it's not a need anymore. A device from 2020 will be able to suffice and get everything done in my daily use, as well as this, a 2022 device. So that's really it. But just enjoy every single moment you have if you do pick up the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to Superman the like button, comment down below, and best of all, share this video because it really does help out the channel a lot. It will help push my content out to more people. That's been it for me. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.